It's a real pleasure to welcome you all here online this evening. It's a pity we can't be together in person, but I think the online world has given us the opportunity of doing things like this at relatively short notice with people further away, currently just in the south of the country, but you know, we could be talking to people all over the world in future on this kind of medium. So for those of you who don't know me or have say just met me in the online world, I'm Greg Ryan. I'm the Director of Formation for the Diocese. And we've been talking for the past couple of months with Susan, partly off the back of hearing very good comments about this program of Sycamore from other dioceses, and talking to one or two people in Hallam Diocese who've used it or experienced it. And so I'm not really going to say very much here other than to introduce our two hosts for this evening. Father Stephen Wang, who is recently appointed as the Rector of English College in Rome. As you can see, he's still with us in England at the moment. And prior to that is Senior Catholic Chaplain for the Universities in the Diocese of Westminster. And most importantly for this evening, perhaps the author of Sycamore and the presenter of Sycamore. And Susan Longhurst, who is the Mission Development Manager for the Sycamore resource. And so she'd reached out to us and had a conversation about whether this would be something we'd like to talk about in Hallam Diocese at almost exactly the same moment as I was about to try and reach out and see if we could find out more about Sycamore. So it's all worked very well. So really, without any further ado, I'm going to hand over to Stephen and Susan. They're going to talk for 20-25 minutes. We'll have a little bit of breakout time and then come back for the last half hour to have some Q&A, which might be in many ways the most important part of you asking questions about the program and thinking about how it might be put into practice. So very welcome, Stephen and Susan, and over to you.
Thanks very much, Greg. And look, really lovely to be with you all. It's a great joy, some familiar faces sitting there. And I'm going to do most of the first bit of the presentation here, but working with my colleague, Susan. And then Susan can field a lot of the questions in the Q&A, especially because she's got a lot more experience than me now of what it actually means to work with Sycamore. I understand from Greg that one or two of you have come across Sycamore, and one or two have even been using it, but for many of you it's a new thing and you're curious. And so really just to introduce Sycamore, I want to give you a very quick introduction, then go through some of the key ingredients of Sycamore, then some practical questions about how to use it, and finally how to start. Because you can come to a webinar, you can have all these enthusiasms, but how do you actually get going when there's a new project? So, first of all, what is Sycamore in a couple of minutes? Well, on the one hand, Sycamore is simply another course, another set of resources. It's a course based around some films that you can run in your parish or your school or your chaplaincy. There's many other courses, many other resources, all doing slightly different things, but we're in that world of resources and courses and programs, and it will suit some of you. So you can hear where I'm going here. On the one hand, it's just another course, and that's great, and we're very proud of it. But on the other hand, we do believe it's much more than a course, because when you begin to understand it and to use it and to embed it in your parish or chaplaincy, it's giving you a whole vision of evangelization and catechesis, because it's not just pressing play on the video, it's bringing people into a community, it's helping them to form friendships, it's deepening the discussions that take place naturally and then that you want to encourage, it's leading people on a journey of faith within that group. But because hopefully you're involving the wider parish in different ways through prayer and through speaking about it and through one course leading to another course, it's creating a culture, an atmosphere within the parish of reaching out to others and of sharing faith and of building community, which, as you can see, is much more than just 60 minutes on a cold winter evening on a Thursday evening. It's about a vision of parish life together. So it's a course, but it's much more than a course. And we want to give you a flavour of what we're doing in Sycamore and of the bigger vision. So that's the first introduction. The second heading here, just what are some of the key ingredients? So you might know nothing about Sycamore. Okay, it's a course, but what's going on in Sycamore? Well, most obvious thing is we've got some beautiful resources, some beautifully produced and filmed and written short videos which are trying to share the beauty of the Catholic Christian faith and to introduce that faith to people, many of them who don't know much about it at all, really coming from the outside, some of them who've got a little bit of Christian or Catholic background but want to go deeper. We're trying to make these resources as accessible as possible. This has been one of the keys in the production and the writing and everything, really. There's such a danger that Christians just end up using jargon or just assume everyone knows what we're talking about, a little bit cliquey. So we've tried to make the language as ordinary, as accessible as possible, the examples as general, as life-giving, as understandable as possible. We've used a phrase, we want this to be Radio 2, not Radio 4. Ordinary people, ordinary language, ordinary Christianity. We've made the films very short, and even the short 20-minute films we've cut into even shorter bite-sized pieces of 6 or 7 minutes. Lots of stories, lots of examples, lots of history, lots of lives of the saints, lots of contemporary culture. Beautiful, accessible resources. Secondly, second ingredient is that all of our resources, especially the films, but all of the follow-up resources and everything, they include some clear Catholic teaching. Some clear Catholic teaching. So whatever the topic, someone comes to the Sycamore session and they're going to learn something. They're going to have the feeling that, well, I'm having fun and I'm meeting people, but I have learned something really helpful here. They're going to take something away with them. The teaching, as I say, it's friendly, but it's accessible. It's faithful to the church and the teaching of the church. There's a vision and a conviction here that Catholic Christianity is a beautiful gift and it's worth sharing. So just some clear Catholic teaching. Third ingredient is a real strong focus on inviting discussion. So we give you 3 times in every session, not just once, but 3 times, a set of questions, discussion questions, a main question and some follow-up questions. And the vision here is not just the teacher asking questions, expecting correct answers, but encouraging people to talk, to share, to be really honest, to be themselves. Because this is how people grow in friendship. It's how they grow in trust. It's actually how people learn as well. That they can say, well, this is great, or I don't get this, or this just seems to be a load of nonsense to me. Or actually, I look at this in a very different way. And you're not trying to force, this is not, first of all, catechesis, checking you know everything you should know before you become baptized. That's one part of catechesis. I'm not saying everything should just be open-ended, but certainly at the beginning, you want people to be able to share their questions and their doubts and not have their heads bitten off and not to feel stupid. So to grow in trust, to question, to share. And that this isn't just a technique, this is how people learn. A number of times I've said I don't understand something and I've got a bit of an answer and I've gone away and a week later something's growing, do you see? This is important. The fourth ingredient is an atmosphere of friendship and welcome, and really drilling that into people's hearts and minds, the leaders, the welcomers, the hosts. That's yourselves probably and your team. This is not you, first of all, worrying about teaching or whether the pasta is cooked al dente or whatever the mission is to be a loving Christian community. Not not forced smiles, you know, not smiley badges making people afraid at these hysterically happy Christians, but just ordinary, loving, real people being friendly, happy to meet people, having a meal if it's possible, hasn't been in the last 18 months, having a cup of coffee, growing in friendship, being normal together. And so the film and the discussion is growing out of a sense of welcome and friendship. The fifth ingredient is you're involving indirectly the whole of the community. Okay, maybe it's 3 of you leading a Sycamore group for 6 people. Now that's hardly the whole parish, but you're talking about it on Sunday. Your parish priest or yourself is announcing it at the end of Mass. You're encouraging people to pray for the group. You're encouraging people to invite people to the evangelization group or to the ongoing formation group. There's a little bit of a buzz in the parish. Oh, we're doing something new, and we're doing what 25 other parishes in the diocese are doing, and what 1,000 other parishes are doing globally. We're committing to something, and we believe in it, and it's shaping our parish and our community then. It's giving us a vision of what we believe is important. We want to be a welcoming community. We want to be a community that allows people to question, but at the same time has real strong convictions about the gift of our faith. So you're involving the whole community. And the 6th ingredient is prayer. Maybe that's the first, but I've put it 6th, is that you're not just putting a program into practice. The team is praying, the parish is praying, the rosary group is praying. You might at some time have prayer within the sessions, although if it's an inquiry group, you might want to hold back for a while, but just you're doing it with the help of God and with the help of the Holy Spirit. And you're knowing that any fruits and blessings that come out of this are because of the work of the Holy Spirit in you and in others and in the parish and the chaplaincy. Okay, there's the key ingredients: beautiful resources, clear Catholic teaching, real genuine discussion, welcoming and friendship, the whole community being committed to Sycamore, and prayer at the beginning, middle and end of everything that you do. Right, let me take a break. Let me show you a 60-second trailer. That's all. It just gives you a flavour of the resources. So I'm going to share my screen, and unless Greg starts waving at me manically, I'm going to assume that you're hearing and seeing this.
What is love? What is happiness? What is the meaning of my life? The Greek philosopher Aristotle said that we're all searching for happiness, even if we can't agree on where to find it. If I rush up to you with a microphone in my hand and say to you, tell me something about yourself, do you start with your name, your nationality, your job? Do you show them your Facebook feed, your Instagram account? Is this you? Is there more? If there's even a chance that there might be a God, would you look for him on the basis that maybe he is looking for us and reaching out to us?
Okay. Now let me go into part 3, give you some practical information. How do I do it? What's there? What's going on? Practical information, just to run through a few things, and lots of time in the Q&A if anything isn't clear here. First, everything you need, I'm assuming that your leaders, catechists, teachers, chaplains, parish priests, etc. Everything that you and your team needs is online, easy to access, and is completely free. There's no sign-in. We might have a sign-in later on, but everything is going to stay free. That's one of our commitments. So this is the films, the training resources, the follow-on resources, the discussion questions, everything that you need and everything that the participants need is completely accessible online from as soon as the webinar finishes. You can go away, start playing with it. The next practical thing, there is a really clear structure. So we have some great web pages called under two headings, planning and training. You want to spend some time with this section of the website, the planning section, the website. And you can see there that each Sycamore session has a really clear structure. You want to welcome, if you're in real life, real people, you want to try and have a meal, because it's such a great icebreaker, getting people to know each other, a sign of your love for people, being able to come together and share. So, but it might be a cup of coffee and a donut, it might be a Zoom meeting, but you want some kind of welcome, getting to know one another. Then you show the film, but remember it's in 3 sections. So you never watch more than 7 minutes of a film. And at the end of a very short film, you then have some discussion questions that come up on the screen. And then you have 5 or 10 minutes of discussion in small groups or in breakout rooms on Zoom or Teams about the question that's on the screen. And then you go back and watch the next bit of the film, another 6 or 7 minutes, and then you have a bit more discussion. You do that 3 times, then you wind up at the end, and everyone has some follow-on resources that are accessible on their phone, on their tablet, a bit like an app, where they can find a summary of the session, some scripture readings, some links to the catechism, so that participants go away with something as well. The key is that it's easy for you as leaders and catechists to run. You don't have to be trained catechists. You don't have to teach catechetical materials. The film does it for you. I do it for you. You have to press the play button, and then there's a skill in this, of course, facilitate, help the discussion, welcome people. I'm not saying there's nothing to do or that your role is unimportant at all, but it's relatively easy for a committed Christian who wants to love his brothers and sisters and has spent a little bit of time preparing. It's not about incredible leadership skills. It's not about having a degree in theology. It's really simple. We've made it as easy to use as possible. Next point, it's a comprehensive program. Don't get scared. I'm going to contradict myself in a minute, but I'll give you the big vision first. It's a 20-session program that goes from welcome, the search for happiness, inquiry, evangelization, is there a God, who is Jesus, into the gift of prayer, the gift of faith, the Bible, into all 7 sacraments, the Catholic vision of moral teaching, the vocations of the Christian life, and ending with the last things and the glory of the saints and the Virgin Mary. So people say to us, what makes it different from other programs, other evangelization courses? Well, this is one distinctive thing. It is a comprehensive program that covers all 4 pillars of the catechism from a Catholic British perspective. So this is a great gift. And you can do, if you want, the whole of your RCIA with Sycamore. Here's my but, though. It's a modular program where each session is self-contained. And so you can take different modules and create your own course, your own pathways through the series. And in fact, I say you can do this, you can, but we've done this for you. We've got a section that we call pathways or courses, so that you can see which set of modules will work for you. We've got 6 or 9 or 12 modules that you can run as a confirmation program. We've got 4 that you can run for parents who are having children baptized. We've got a number of sessions you can run with parents whose children are doing First Communion. We've got an inquiry session you can use for people who are coming in at the beginning with no background at all. We've got a quite deep RCIA set of modules that uses the UCAT as some background reading and some scripture reading and some reflection. There's any number of courses. In fact, there's about 35 that you can choose from 4 weeks to 40 weeks if you run Sycamore alternating with the UCAT with personal reflection. So it is a large, big, comprehensive thing. It's a big beast, but we've broken it down so that you can use just what you need and no more. And it gives you a great variety then. For you might be thinking, ah, yes, we need a confirmation program. We need a Lent group. We need an Advent group. We need a post-confirmation group. Great. Or you might be thinking, we want to move from an inquiry session into a sacramental preparation session, into a follow-up session. And we can do any number of things for you as long as you've got a sense of how to use the modules and how to go from one to the other. Everything can be run remotely. We didn't plan this. This was definitely providence. Yes, Sycamore was finished about 18 months ago, almost the week that COVID started, the lockdown started, March 2020. So it was designed to be run in a church hall, in a school. You meet together, you have a meal, then you break out into little tables. But really, in God's providence, everything can be run on Zoom, on Teams, on Google Hangouts, whatever you're doing. And in fact, there are many advantages for some groups of running remotely, because people can come from wider distances. People can come even if they can't get childcare. People can come even if they're afraid of going out on a rainy December night because of the bus being late. So you've all got experience of Zoom, of breakout groups, of sharing the chat, of sharing resources afterwards. It's such a gift, the remote thing. And the great thing about Sycamore, if I say so myself, it's not in our planning at all, is you can transition from one to the other and back again. You can start in Zoom in the semi-lockdown now. You can move into an online thing. You can feel that people are going away on their Christmas holidays, but you want to have the final session. Well, we'll do it on Zoom again. So there's a great flexibility in how you run it. If you do have people with different languages, we've got Sycamore now in we will have in about 10 different languages, the subtitles translated. So we've already got them in French and Spanish and Portuguese and Norwegian, and we're working on Polish and Vietnamese and Arabic and one or two other languages. So just that's a little bonus thing, that people can use the subtitles in different languages if you have particular language groups. And just to say personally, it's lovely to hear the testimonies of people who've been using Sycamore over the last 18 months. Just group leaders saying how, well, the things I've said really, but to be affirmed in how easy it's been to use, how quickly people have got enthusiastic and involved, how one group has led to a follow-on group, or one catechist in the confirmation group has said to the RCIA catechist, hey, we've been using this, why don't you have a look? Of how a parish has said to their neighbouring parish or to their deanery, we found this really useful. And to get the enthusiasm and the feedback from leaders like yourselves, but also above all from the participants. And the overriding feedback that we get from participants is how friendly they've found that the sessions have been, how welcomed they have felt. It's been exactly what the vision is, which is a warm, welcoming space where anyone can come without prejudices, without expectations, and because of that then finds themselves speaking freely, sharing gently at first and maybe a bit more deeply, having a good discussion and maybe a good argument, but it's a friendly argument and a friendly discussion, and then coming back next week and then bringing their friends the following week, just the way that Sycamore can grow and expand. And so we've got parishes in the UK, parishes around the world, where just, they're dabbling in Sycamore, they're using it in a small group in one context, We've had a lot of parishes, for example, ran a Lent group, and just that's a lovely way in, a nice eye-opener. But equally, we've got 1 or 2 parishes that are running 5 or 6 different Sycamore groups. The parish priest is running RCIA. The parents are running a parent support group. The head of sixth form at the local school is running a core RE for the 80% non-Catholic students in their sixth form, but they're enjoying it because it's accessible and it's not too heavy. So just, it's lovely to see when Sycamore gets embedded and rooted in a parish and becomes part of the culture. And just in case you didn't know, why is it called Sycamore? Well, in the Bible, in St. Luke's Gospel, as you remember, Jesus comes to the town of Jericho, and there's a man called Zacchaeus who longs to meet Jesus, but he's too short, so he climbs a sycamore tree to get a better view. And it's a lovely image for us of Sycamore helping people to get a better view, helping them to connect with others, with Jesus, but ultimately Zacchaeus comes down from the tree and brings Jesus home. So Sycamore is redundant, and that's our aim. It's about faith, it's about your parishes, your chaplaincies, the relationships, the friendships. It's about people going to heaven. Sycamore is not a movement, you don't join it, but hopefully it can help you in the mission that you're already on, which is the mission of the church, of loving God, loving your neighbour, the mission of evangelization and catechesis. And just last 2 or 3 minutes, there's probably enough there, food for thought, but how to use it? Well, if you've been listening, first of all, some of you might be working in very specific areas and you might think, gosh, yes, I can see that Sycamore, if it's got the right course, we could use that course. Classic example, you're running a confirmation group, it's feeling a bit tired and you're thinking, well, maybe Sycamore's got a confirmation group. Yes, we have. In fact, we've got 3 different ones, depending on how long you want to run it for. Take a look, maybe it will work for you. And Sycamore might slot into what you're doing. That's great. But equally, if you're not needing a resource for what you're doing already, we really encourage you to think of how you could use Sycamore to do something new in the parish. Very good example is the 2 main examples are evangelization and faith formation. So how could Sycamore help you to run an inquiry group, an evangelization group that maybe you're not running at the moment, to invite parishioners to come for a taster, to invite parishioners to bring their friends, their neighbours, their colleagues, to send out some publicity so that other people are invited to your parish, maybe for the first time. How can you use this webinar as a little impetus to say, we'd really love to be doing something that we're not doing already? And could this help us in our vision of evangelization? But equally, faith formation, you might be thinking less about evangelization and just the 300 people who come to Mass in your church. Well, we haven't done anything new and exciting for them other than the wonderful things of the liturgy and ordinary life. So could we do a course this spring, this summer? Could we do an Advent course? But get ready for it. Could we do some faith formation for them in whatever form it might take? And that's a nice thing because it can be a great blessing in itself, but it can also be a taster for Sycamore. And if you're not sure how to move forward, I would say, this is just to bring things to a conclusion now. Above all, please spend some time on the website. I'm going to show you a screenshot as we finish here. Have a look at the website, get to know it, spend some time with it, share it with some people in the parish. There's so much wisdom there from other people who've gone through what you're going through, which is exploring Sycamore full of questions. And my advice is simply, give it a go. Give it a go. If you're already running a program, then just try a single Sycamore session, bring it into your program. Have a taster session with your parish. Get permission from your parish priest to say, can I do a little shout out saying, we're going to run Sycamore next Wednesday on Zoom. Here's the link. Put it on Facebook. Come along. Just a taster, no commitment. Or get a little team together, and I mean just 2 or 3 people who might be interested. A little core evangelization team, a little parish renewal team, a little support for parents in our parish team. Come together, explore Sycamore, pray together, get half a dozen people to come along to a session, see what they think, and maybe they could become then a core group, a team that you want to work with, and then roll it out one step at a time. Remember, you've got nothing to lose. Take a risk. On my door behind me, you can't quite see it, there's a Facebook meme that says, if your dreams don't scare you, they aren't big enough. If your dreams don't scare you, they aren't big enough. And let me show you the website. Great. So I've shared in the chat the link to the main page. There's the home page, introduction, but this is the key. Do you see these tabs here? All your introductory questions are in about, and especially I'd say the why starter group. That really is the talk I've just given you, the key ingredients, some of the questions that you'll have about Sycamore. Everything's there. The films themselves are under watch. There's the 20 films, just to play from the site. All the different courses are under pathways. For example, here are the many different sacramental pathways: RCIA, confirmation, infant baptism, first communion parents, etc. And above all, do you see these 2 sections here? Planning, lots of different advice and questions if you're just thinking about it. And then training, if you've got a small group of 3 or 4 people, or even a larger group of a dozen people that want to get involved, all the training, how to run a pilot session, how to run a training course, and lots of follow-on resources for your leaders. Okay. It's a joy to be with you, really happy to share this time with you, and I have just about, Greg, kept to my 25 minutes, which is a minor miracle in itself. So I think we're going to have just a little buzz in, Greg, maybe groups of 3 or something like that, you know, yep. probably no bigger. And this is just to share your own quick reactions about Sycamore with each other. What have you picked up? What's been interesting? What are you curious about? And even what questions do you have? And we're going to come back in not long, just 4 or 5 minutes time. So I'll hand over to Greg now.
Father Stephen or Susan, do you want to explain how the Q&A bit is going to work?
Sure, I can jump in if that's okay with Father Stephen. So first of all, just to introduce myself, my name's Susan and I'm the Mission Development Manager for Sycamore. And my role essentially, and it's a great role because it's liaising and developing relationships with dioceses all over the country and internationally as well. And my role very much is to support groups that are starting to use Sycamore and ongoing as well. So it's about making people feel empowered, so that they feel confident to pick up whichever pathway they choose and run with it and really get that positive experience and feel supported all the way along. So my role is very much here to support you, and that covers all elements of Sycamore in terms of training, helping people to feel comfortable with IT, for example, the technical elements, essentially any questions that people have. I'm here to help. So first of all, I mean, it's great to be with you this evening, and we had a great discussion in my breakout room, so many fantastic questions, and I'm sure you've all got questions maybe in the back of your mind. So we've got quite a large group, but the plan might be, if you have a question, you can either put it in the chat box at the side and just keep them rolling, and I can look and Greg can look, and we can field them from there. And also just to jump in, so as there aren't any questions there right now, I just wonder if you can raise your hand if you have a question. And I'm sure this will be of benefit to everyone listening, because I'm sure you've all got the same things going around in your mind. So does anybody want to kick off? Does anyone have a question for us, either myself or Father Stephen? Hopefully they're not going to be too complicated.
Yes. So I know you're showing as Maria, but I know it's not really just Maria there today. Do you want to go ahead?
No, it's John. I've got to go on another course to put 2 names in front of thing. Yeah, I would like to ask, because I've had quite a few inquiries in our church about how people would like to study further into their faith. But very nervous because they've done no formal qualifications and things like that. But that is something that they're looking at. And I just wondered, this is probably, it seems from what the introduction said, that this is an ideal format and way of studying our faith, wanting to go a bit deeper into it if we can, or as deep as allows. But what I would like to know is, can it lead on to more formal qualifications? Will this add to it? Can it be used as a stepping stone for those that want to go further, as well as just being something separate as it is for study of our faith and what have you? But is there a formal side to it where it can lead on to set a certificate or further, building that confidence?
Sure, absolutely. And I mean, you've already identified the first major positive, really, which is in terms of faith formation groups. Sycamore has a really lovely pathway in, like we have our How to Pray pathway, our Advent, our Lent courses, our small group pathways, which can do exactly what I think you're alluding to, which is just to get people talking, get people together, talking about their faith in a sort of fluent way, sharing ideas, sharing discussions. So the faith formation, I would really recommend that you have a look, because there's lots of different options of pathways that you can choose there, and vary the length as well. So it might be that you're only looking for a short course, or you want something a bit more meatier, in which case there's lots to choose from. I think in terms of, we haven't got any formal affiliation with a particular certificate at the moment, but I think what Sycamore does very well is to get people, as I said, get people fluent in talking about their faith, get them very comfortable in talking about their faith, but also give them the opportunity to explore areas perhaps which they hadn't had time to do over lockdown with others. So I think it gets them thinking, it gets them talking, and then potentially we can then help signpost people, depending on the diocese they're in, and obviously your own diocese has a wealth of resources at your disposal, to then say, actually, here's what you might like to do for your next step. So it's a great way to raise leaders and catechists and sort of provide that training. But at the same time, as well as doing your course, I would encourage you to look at the website and just look at that training, just look at the training that we have on there. There's lots of information there just to help people feel more comfortable in leading as well. So I hope that's answered your question.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah. Oh, and Petra did highlight a very important point just in terms of chat. I'm sure many of you know, but the chat button is at the bottom of the screen. As you hover over the bottom of the screen, there's a chat button there, and then you can get going and put your question there for us. Okay, so just in terms of having a look, there's great questions coming in.
Great question.
Is there a module we can use for people returning to Mass? Some might not have followed or been able to access church services during the pandemic. Well, again, I think it's about having a look at the pathways, particularly around faith formation, maybe even inquiry pathways, just so that we can start introducing people to those wonderful concepts, those central concepts, as Father Stephen said, about happiness, love, prayer, getting people talking again and getting them coming together as a community. So as people do start to return to Mass, this would be a wonderful way to sort of bring your community together in an additional way so that they can start talking and sharing ideas. So again, encourage you to go and have a look at some of those faith formation pathways that we have. Okay, it says in the chat, are there pathways which are tailored towards children? Our pathways at the moment, we do have confirmation pathways, but actually the age limit for our young people, we sort of recommend that Sycamore is appropriate for those in school year 10 or who are 14 and above. So therefore it's perfect for confirmation, but it's also fantastic for sixth form and young adults. So particularly since I've been working with groups, I've seen a real great number of those working in university chaplaincies, for example. But in sixth form, it seems to allow young people that space to talk about some of these the concepts which are really important to them, these ideas about faith that are really important. But it also adds this dimension, which is about peer leadership. So lots of young people, lots of sixth formers are starting to run the sessions amongst themselves. So it has this lovely opportunity to sort of start equipping our young people as well in running groups as well. So to answer your question, yes, school year 10 and age 14 and above is what we would recommend. But we do have pathways for preparing parents for Holy Communion and for confirmation as well. So there's that sort of preparatory element and accompanying parents as well. Okay, there's a lovely comment there. There is a great session on the Eucharist, Alison. Thank you very much for raising that. Yes, it is wonderful. So again, for people returning to Mass, you might want to sort of hand-pick really a couple of courses, a couple of videos that would be particularly significant at the current time for people coming back. Anne-Marie has said, I'm amazed the course is free. Is there any charge at all? Are there any plans for a charge in the future? So this is a wonderful question, and one I'm really glad that you've raised, Anne-Marie. The trustees, the Sycamore trustees, took the decision just before lockdown to remove the subscription so that Sycamore is freely available to all dioceses. And this is a wonderful, wonderful gift really for dioceses, and that's partially what drives my work, is to ensure that dioceses know that this is there, know that this wonderful resource is available and freely accessible. So at the current time, we don't have plans to reintroduce the subscription, and it is free to use. So my two encouragements would be that we do obviously welcome any donations, and people have been amazingly generous over the last year, and to spread the word. That's the other thing, because the more people that know about Sycamore, the more that start to use it, it starts to become yeah, really a wonderful gift to parishes and groups and schools as well. Okay, Petra has said, is it teasing the responses using with year 9 at the moment? A bit challenging to get them to speak, but it works well. Thank you, Petra. I mean, that's great feedback, and I think you're right. I think many of the concepts and the ideas that we're talking about in those, certainly the first 10 films, they're the concepts that young people are talking about in school. So I think with judgment, I think, yes, absolutely use with year 9 if you've got a group that's actually working well. I think as you raise, you know, getting young people to talk and to share can be challenging. And I would say that actually for Zoom, this is where Sycamore has come into its own, particularly because I think in some ways people feel more able to share, more able to participate on Zoom. Some young people just like to add their comments in the chat, for example. So there's a sort of variety of ways in which young people can actually participate, put their comments forward, that Zoom provides for them. So I'm really pleased to hear that you're finding that with year 9 working particularly well. Okay, Greg, would you like to put your comment in person?
It's really just a comment to Alison's question, that this sounds like very much like the situation Father Stephen mentioned about looking for something new to do, looking at it's a moment of renewal, of refreshment. But also it struck me, and certainly my experience talking to people has been, the last 18 months have been a time of reflection. People are asking new questions, they're looking at their faith in different ways, not necessarily negatively, but they're asking It feels like blinds have been raised and perspective is different, and it'll be interesting to see what questions come out from that. I had a session recently, well, a module on CCRS where I've run for years, and one of the questions comes up with more or less the same answers every year, except this year on what are the characteristics of the church. For the first time, the majority of people put hope. And I've never seen that assigned so obviously. And I said, you know, why do you think that is? And they said, yeah, it just feels like the thing we're asking of the church and expecting of the church at this point. I thought that was important.
Yes, very, very important. And I think you're absolutely right about people coming together and just having that space to share their experiences of what lockdown has been like, both for them as individuals and their families, but also as parish communities. So it might well be a wonderful comment from Bill in our group said actually for him, he was thinking that actually the next few months would be a time to start something new and fresh as we start to sort of emerge from lockdown. And this might be a wonderful gift to embark on the journey with Sycamore. So that was, I think you're right to highlight that there are lots of issues I think people need to come together to have that space to talk through, and that hopefully Sycamore will provide that space for people. Kevin has said we used confirmation, great to hear. We've used confirmation candidates from year 7 to 10 together with their parents, yet to get feedback, but we'll do so. Well, this is great. I mean, it's really sort of testimony really to, I think, how flexible and adaptable Sycamore is. And I was just sharing with our group that actually we've had some really pioneering work from groups in different dioceses who have been pioneering parent-led catechesis. So therefore letting parents choose to some degree what films they might like to, what films pique their interest the most, but just really giving them the reins and saying actually you can be in charge of this, and as well as all our pathways that support parents through confirmation. But there's that wonderful opportunity with Sycamore to sort of give them back, actually you're in charge and you can be part of this with your young people and accompany them as well. So that's a really good comment. I'm really pleased to hear that you're using it, and look forward to the feedback as well. And I just use that question to say it would be wonderful to hear your feedback. My role is very much about growing the Sycamore community, and one of the things that really does make us feel so positive is when we get the feedback from communities, the feedback from groups that say actually we've had this wonderful experience. So please do feedback. I will just, before I answer the last question, just encourage you, if you are going to start a Sycamore course in any way, please try and register with us. Please register your group, because once you've registered your group online, we know you're there, you're on our map, so therefore I can help to tailor the support that you may need, and we're just aware that you're working in this way. So there's always that available to you to register for your group. Please register or consider registering for our newsletter as well, because it just keeps you again in the loop of everything that's happening with Sycamore, new developments, training, resources that we think you might find useful. So that's another way to become part of the Sycamore community. And finally, we have a leaders forum on Facebook, and I'd encourage you just to have a look at it if you are on Facebook. I know not everybody is, but this is a great way to sort of have a forum where you can just ask questions, get people's advice on issues that they may have had, just real-time practical help on running Sycamore groups. So there's 3 ways there that you can become part of the Sycamore community, and it'd be wonderful to have you on board. And I'll just answer the last question. Owen, it's nice to see a familiar face, Owen. How can we find out what other parishes are running, and if they're running Sycamore, so we can learn from them or share courses? So this is a great question, and I know Owen and I have discussed this as well. Come to me, email me if you want to know of other parishes, maybe in your diocese, because having worked so closely with the diocesan coordinators in each diocese, we get to know therefore some of the parishes that are running groups, and we would love them to link. So link, work collaboratively, share their experiences. So I would encourage you at the moment to come and email me, and I can then hopefully signpost you or put you in touch with other parishes nearby that are running Sycamore courses. So Father Stephen has just put the link very kindly to the Leaders Forum. Yeah, and just to say, are there any other questions? There were great questions, by the way. I must copy the, the question and the chat.
There's, I did put a question, but you missed it out.
Oh, so sorry, Martin. Sorry.
Yeah, it's for those who aren't up to speed with technology and haven't got the internet or smartphones. Are there handouts that can be handed out at sessions and things like that? Sure. Because it all seems to be geared to people with the internet, which is fine. Which is fine for me and other people, but some aren't sort of that way inclined, so to speak.
Absolutely. And I would, what I would love to do is to signpost you to the page, both the training pages and the planning pages, but most importantly, for every film there are pages, session guides, which can be printed out and given physically to people, so they have hard copies in front of them, just to avoid exactly what you're saying, because not everybody has IT, or they're not accessible with IT, or for some reason. So the session guides are all there in full that can be printed out beforehand. You can give out to your group. Hopefully going forward we would have face-to-face sessions. We might look forward to that in the future, so therefore you know, in terms of accessibility, it becomes even more possible to come together in that way. But yes, have a look at the session guides. They're a great resource, a supplementary resource to accompany each one of the films, and they've been very carefully put together, so have a look at those. Oh, Petra has just signed up for a group. Thank you very much, Petra. That's wonderful. That's great. It's great to have you on board.
Greg, shall I just show where the session guides, because it's quite an interesting part of the...
Yeah, please do.
Just if I share the screen again.
And just before Father Stephen does that, just in terms of accessibility, some people have found that actually they've been streaming the videos, and that sometimes works really well if you've got a reliable connection. But actually, if you're in a group, you can download the video in whichever format you like, and therefore you can have it on your PC in advance. So it just helps that whole issue. It helps to avoid any problems with streaming. You have it there on your PC. So that's also available to you.
So as long as the leader has access to the internet at some point,
yeah, they
prior
can
to the session,
it,
they can do it on behalf of everyone. That's great.
Exactly.
So just this is, once you're committed and you know what you're doing, you go to the film session section. Let's say you want to show the first session, and here together is everything you need. So the film is there. You just press play, and you can jump around. You can see it's set for Polish subtitles here for some reason.
Brilliant.
And then you've got the subtitles at the bottom. So if people are watching at home, they can use whatever subtitles they want. And a very useful thing, especially with people of hard of hearing or people with English as a second language, is actually just to use the English subtitles as well. But equally, on that same page, you've got this link to the session guide. And if I click on that, this is what you would share with people for them to take home, looking at home, or if they're physically with you, to watch on the bus. And each session guide, if you've just watched this film, it gives you the questions again. It gives you readings from the UCAT if you're using it in catechesis. If you want to go deeper, it gives you actual links to the catechism. So I'm going to click on this, and it takes you, oh, that's forbidden. I'll need to check that. That was a good classic teaching moment. It gives you links to the catechism and to the paragraphs that someone will need, and then it gives you some scripture quotations to meditate on, and then it gives you a summary of the content of the film in terms of the teaching content. So that's your takeaway. And as Martin, as Susan was just saying, you can print this or copy and paste it into your own document if you do want to give hard copies to people. Thank you.
Fantastic, thank you. So I'm just wondering, are there any more final questions to our speakers? I think it's been a very useful introduction. So I mean, on behalf of everyone, thank you, Father Stephen, thank you, Susan, ever so much for reaching out in the first place, and for agreeing to come in and do this evening and live, and that's gone very well. I think people are quite inspired looking around the room.